Revenge or forgiveness? How one secret changed their relationship. I came across this picture by accident. My wife of 4 years traveled extensively on business. I was left alone for weeks at a time. I spent many lonely hours watching adult movies. That's where I found it. There was no need to see her face. Her vintage wedding set was quite unique. Her late mother's wedding ring on her finger only added to the evidence. The necklace was her last Christmas gift from me. The mesh camisole was a birthday present from me. No contraceptive was visible. Sandra doesn't use birth control. We only see each other 10 days a month. We haven't had sex in 2 months. My rage was almost complete. Using my extensive computer skills, I found the same photo on 3 different adult sites, with the original being on a dating site Friend Finder. My life was over. I called her, but no one answered her cell phone or Skype. I called her hotel, but her room phone went unanswered. I started calling her co-workers who were supposed to be with her, but they all denied knowing her whereabouts. I sent her an email to follow up on my frantic voicemails to contact me. A family emergency, a matter of life and death. After 30 minutes of no response, I asked her hotel to send someone to her room. 10 minutes later, my cell phone rang. "Hey, honey, what's wrong? Check your email." I hit send and forwarded her a picture. "Oh, my God. Don't say another word. Pack up your stuff and get on a plane tonight." "Honey, I can't." "If you're afraid of losing your job, don't worry. Just pack your stuff and be back here in a few hours." "I can't. I'm sending a photo to all your work contact." "What?" "The morals clause in your employment contract. By 8 a.m., you'll be out of your precious job. Get on a plane now." I hung up the phone and started preparing for her arrival. At 8:05, I received a text message from her CEO. He informed me that my wife had been terminated effective immediately and apologized that her behavior had discredited herself, our marriage, and the company. He bluntly stated she would never hold such a position again. I couldn't help but laugh at that pun. At 8:15, I called her, straight to voicemail. I saw that I had a message with the details of her flight. I ordered an Uber to pick her up and bring her home. At 10 minutes past 11, she came to the front door. I wonder what her first thoughts were when the key didn't work. She rang the bell and I waited a few minutes before opening the door. "Please, honey, let me explain." Her gaze slid around the living room. All of her things were neatly stacked in boxes. "Sit down, you cheater!" Sandra sat in silence. No tears, no sign of remorse. What an idiot. "You can stay here long enough to put your things away. You're not leaving this room. You will not talk to me. No explanations are possible. So make some phone calls and get out of my house." You must want to know why. I made my way to the kitchen and poured myself another cup of coffee. "Leave your rings on the side table. Now that you mention it, I wonder what your mother would think of you right now." Sobs could be heard from the next room. I didn't care. I reloaded for my next shot. "If the doorbell rings, open it. It'll be for you." Yes, there was that sound again. Definitely sobbing. Tears at last, though I'm sure she didn't shed them because of our marriage. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Sandra opened it and saw her father. His eyes were burning with righteous fire. I heard a slap from the other side of the house. "From now on, you have no family. Live on the streets. That's how cheating girls like you survive, right?" "Dad, please." "Your mother would die if she heard about this. Thank God she's already gone. As we speak, your sister is cutting you out of our lives. No one will lift a finger to help you." He turned and walked away. I know his heart was being torn apart. I heard Sandra sit up in the chair again. The uncontrollable crying was almost music to my ears. About 20 minutes later, the bell rang again. I didn't even move to answer it. I heard her get up and drag herself over to him. "Father Mike, I'm not—" "Sandra White, I'm here to inform you that as of this moment, you are banned from all parish activities, including confession. Based on everything I know, I will be meeting with the Archbishop to draw up a bull of excommunication." No! For Mike closed the door himself. I don't know how long it sat at the door. Frankly, I didn't care. Every sob was like a breath rushing into my lungs. Every cry was a jolt to my heart. Finishing my coffee, I walked to the door and saw Sandra still lying there. I bent down and picked her up in my arms and walked her over to the couch. I gently laid her down and stared at the woman I had once loved. There was nothing there now. No love, no hate, just emptiness. Sandra Nicole Dean. White, your career is ruined. Your family has disowned you. Your church has abandoned you. Can you say your life is over now? She lay staring into space. She was broken beyond measure. For a few minutes, nothing seemed to move inside her. Then came a simple, yes. That's all right then. Sandra, now tell me, did you have sex with another man last night? Yes. Did you have sex with other men when you were traveling? Yes. Did you have sex with a man every night you traveled? Yes. Have you ever used contraceptives? No. How come you didn't get pregnant? I have a diaphragm. Now answer Sandra. Why? Because I didn't have you. Are you kidding me? It took me a while to get my rage under control. I got up and walked around the house for about an hour before returning to the living room. I've had other lovers before you. The first time you and I had sex, we made love. Deep, intense, meaningful love. It had never happened to me before. The months leading up to my promotion were the happiest of my life. Then I had to travel so much. It was killing me to be away from you. I needed you, your touch, your love. I missed you so much that I started doing terrible things to fill the void. And then I couldn't stop. Why didn't you ever say anything to me? We were trying to save up to have a baby. We needed my income so badly. I couldn't give up until we had saved enough for me to stop working. So you were lonely and selfish. Did you ever wonder what I did while you were gone 3 weeks of every month? I tried not to think about how lonely you were. I tried to drown out my guilt with all that sex. Oh my God, honey, there were so many men there. Are you so sure they were all drug and disease-free? They all had medical certificates. Like this one? I held out a form letter I'd downloaded from a swingers website. All I had to do was fill out my personal information. I wonder how many people currently with HIV have been duped in this way. Sandra studied the form and again couldn't stand it and cried. I'm going to the clinic later today. If I show any signs of an STD, I will kill you. Do you understand? Please, God, honey, please kill me now. Please erase my soul from existence. Free me from this guilt and shame. Please kill me. No, I won't get my hands dirty with someone like you. However, there is another option. Sandra sat up and looked at me. I don't know if it was hope or desperation. I reached behind my back, took her grandfather's revolver, and placed it in front of her on the coffee table. I'm offering you the coward's way out. I won't kill you, but I'll sit here and watch you kill yourself. Do you have the strength to end this now, Sandra? Do you really want an easy way out? Sandra stared at the gun for what seemed like hours. I could see the determination on her face. She leaned forward, grabbed the weapon, and pressed it against her right temple. Tears flooded her eyes as she looked at me for what, and she knew it must be the last time. Please try to forgive me. I've been so horrible to you. Find a way to move on without me. Please know that I'm so sorry and I love you. Sandra closed her eyes and pulled the trigger. The gunshot sounded unusually loud in the confined space. Sandra collapsed, and the gun slipped from her hand. I grabbed my cell phone and dialed 911. Hello, my wife just tried to shoot herself. The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Pandemic marriage healing. I was distraught as I leaned against the railing on the terrace of our summer waterfront home in Essex, Connecticut, that early August morning in 2020. I was watching my family. Trish, my wife of 34 years, my son Michael and his beautiful wife Lori, along with their newborn daughter Kylie, another son Stephen and his wife Meg, and my youngest daughter Gretchen, her husband Phil, along with their unborn child. Gretchen was 6 months pregnant, and her belly was just beginning to show under her loose t-shirt. My family sprawled out on the sand on blankets, out of reach of the slowly rolling waves. Although the worst of the COVID-19 virus had passed, our family still maintained a social distance. Beach blankets were spread out in a circle, each a few feet from the other. Our children arrived at our house this morning. They all lived in central Connecticut, where they grew up. The biggest problem Trish and I still had was that we weren't allowed to hold our first grandchild in our arms. Kylie was almost a month old. Current guideline regulations required that newborn babies be isolated from everyone but their parents until they had received their 6-week immunizations. While we were saddened that we couldn't hug and kiss our precious Kylie, we realized that our children were responsible for their daughter's well-being and we shouldn't get involved. As the devastating effects of the COVID pandemic affected our family personally and professionally, we were very careful to follow sensible rules and guidelines. But overall, I still had conflicting feelings. While the world was gripped by a horrible virus, Trish and I took time and turned our musty marriage and ordinary mundane life into something special. 6 months earlier. "Can you make me a drink?" shouted Trish as she came out of the garage and into the kitchen. It was mid-March, a Friday afternoon. I walked out of my home office holding a half-finished glass of bourbon and headed for the bar in our living room. After pouring a couple inches of tequila and filling the glass with ice, frozen berries, and lime, I added another inch of Knob Creek bourbon to my glass. "Here you go," I said, handing Trish her drink. "You wouldn't believe what the school bigwigs assholes decided today," Trish said. "They're closing schools for the next 2 weeks. It's not just in our town. Every school in the state is closed by the end of the month. I'll be making up missed school days until July." "No, you won't," I reassured my wife. "I read that this 2-week shutdown won't affect the length of the school year. You'll be released in mid-June." Trish took a sip of her drink, sighed, and asked, "Where are we going to go for dinner?" Since our children have separated and started independent lives, Trish and I, a couple with well above average incomes, have allowed ourselves to dine out at restaurants 3 or 4 nights a week. "Don't you listen to the news? All the restaurants are closed." "Then what are we going to do?" Trish asked. "Today I had a little time before lunch, so I went to the grocery store. The freezer in the basement is full of meat. At the same time, I bought the necessary necessities. I'll grill some asparagus, shrimp, and steaks." Dinner was delicious, but we ate mostly in silence. We drank a bottle of wine for 2, and when our plates were empty, Trish volunteered, "I'll clean up if you take the dog out for a walk." Without a word, I took my glass of bourbon, went to the bar, and poured myself another drink. I called to the dog, and we walked together across the backyard to the paths leading into the woods. As was my custom, I walked Gordon, our 12-year-old Australian shepherd, until I finished what was in the glass, and then he and I returned home. I poured myself another and refreshed Trish's tequila. Then I settled back in my chair and fell asleep unnoticed. A few hours later, Trish woke me up, insisting that I was snoring uncontrollably. "I want you to sleep in the guest room tonight," she declared. The next morning was a jam as Trish and I suffered from a slight hangover. I took Gordon for a morning walk. The only difference from the evening was that my favorite drink was now a steaming cup of black coffee. Around 10 a.m., we sat at the kitchen table, realizing that our options for making Saturday active were very limited. The gym we had been visiting was closed, as were all the other secondary businesses. Federal and state officials suggested that everyone stay home. "Let's go to the beach house. We can take a walk and give it a good scrubbing." Trish dismissed my idea almost immediately, and for the next few minutes we sat alone with our thoughts. Eventually I got up from the kitchen table. "Where are you going?" she asked. I'm going to go to the beach for a sleepover, I told her. I was approaching the stairs leading to the second floor when Trish roared, "What am I supposed to do then?" I ignored her rhetorical question. 5 minutes later, Trish entered the bedroom and watched me gather in silence. After a minute, she opened her closet, pulled out her gym bag, and packed it with the necessary clothes and accessories for the night and the next day. My suggestion to clean our summer house was a gross exaggeration. We use the service we get in early March. We get the winter dust removed from the cottage, the kitchen and bathrooms cleaned, and the patio and terrace furniture arranged. By 1 p.m., Trish and I were walking on the beach and watching Gordon chase the waves. For dinner, I grilled chicken and Trish chopped vegetables for a salad. The cabin didn't have cable and internet yet, so we took another long walk after dinner. It's still cold at night on the beach in mid-March, and we had to wrap up in winter coats, hats, and gloves for the walk. That night, we slept like dead people. "What are you thinking about?" Trish asked. We were sitting in the kitchen, drinking coffee and looking out the window at Long Island Sound. "Your school starts vacation next week, right?" Trish nodded in agreement. I told my sales team to comply with all local work stoppage regulations. After talking to my customers, I learned that our products and related surgeries have been deemed optional at most hospitals. All scheduled operations have been postponed. I will have little work for the entire next week. With a glance at Trish, I asked her, "Let's stay here for this time." I could see that Trish's first reaction to my request was to say no. I was glad to see her restrained and thoughtful. My wife sat down on the stool next to me and looked out at the surf outside the window. "We're going to need internet." I grabbed my cell phone off the countertop, found a local internet provider, and called customer service. 5 minutes later, I reported back to Trish. "They'll come today and hook up the internet and cable." She was still staring at the gray water, but I noticed the smile that appeared. "Let's run home," Trish suggested. "We'll pack up what we might need for the week and be back in time for dinner." Later that night, while I was grilling the pork loin, Trish opened the sliding glass door and announced, "I was going to make us drinks, but you packed my tequila, but you forgot your bourbon." "I didn't forget," I admitted. "I've had too much to drink in the last year." I decided to give beer, wine, and booze a break for a week. Trish watched me in surprise. "Can I get you something?" she asked. I shrugged and asked, "I'd have a seltzer." 2 days later, I was going to take Gordon for our usual 2-mile morning walk. Trish was sitting in the living room in front of the TV waiting for a YouTube yoga class to start. "Can I ask you a favor?" I asked my wife. Trish looked over and raised an eyebrow. "My chiropractor is unavailable due to the epidemic, and I know that without him, my back will start hurting again soon. Dr. Joe sent out an email to all of his patients recommending that they start doing yoga in the meantime. And you want to go for a walk with me and Gordon? I'd like to do yoga with you after I get back." Trish tried to suppress a laugh, but failed miserably. "Are you sure? I can hardly keep from laughing at you." I nodded and added, "I'll be staring at your ass, though, you old pervert." On Wednesday morning, after reading an email from the principal of her school, Trish told me, "In 2 weeks, the school opens for distance learning. I will be busy all week starting Monday. We will be teaching kids using different online platforms." After thinking for a minute, she asked, "Do you think we should go home?" "What do you think?" I asked. Trish shrugged, smiled, and confessed, "I'd rather not." Later that afternoon, I returned from Lowe's. I had 2 folding tables and 2 folding chairs. Our house is 2 stories. The first floor has an open floor plan and is both a living and entertaining area. The second floor consists of 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. The master bedroom is located at the front of the home and has a large window overlooking the water. The windows of the 2 smaller guest bedrooms face the shoreline, one to the north and one to the south. Trish helped me move the furniture, and within an hour we had set up 2 offices in the spare bedrooms. Each was equipped with a temporary but quite comfortable desk where you could see the view for a mile or two of beach. Trish went to our house and returned with her school supplies. While she set up her new office, I sat on the patio and started another project. "What is it?" Trish asked. She had a big smile on her face. "It's a smokehouse. I'm going to learn how to smoke fish and meat." "And you're going to do that without a glass of bourbon?" My wife prodded me with a laugh. She laughed even harder when I gave her the middle finger. "When are you going to wow me with your first smoked dish? I've bought all the right ingredients for my culinary sorcery. We'll be having dinner at 6:30. My dinner of pasta, bacon, and smoked shrimp was a spectacular success. I watched with satisfaction as Trish wiped her nearly clean plate with the last piece of bread. She carefully picked up the remaining butter, garlic, and some olives. A slice was halfway to her open mouth when she said, "I can't eat anything else, not even this piece." With that admission, she reached across the table and fed me. "That was delicious, Chris. I love you." For the next couple weeks, we continued our beach life. We woke up at 5 a.m., took Gordon out for a walk, and did morning yoga. My initial, completely awkward attempts at various poses gradually improved, or at least I was no longer causing Trish to laugh hysterically. I was still paying a lot of attention to her heart-shaped butt. Every morning around 7:30, we would disperse to our offices and begin our workday. Trish usually worked until 1 p.m. and spent most of the day alone. I found that in order to fully fulfill my professional responsibilities, I needed to work from 7:30 to 11 a.m., then from noon to 2 p.m., and from 3:30 to 5 p.m. As part of our property, we had a large, detached, two-car garage with a storage room on the second floor. We tried to keep the building in good working order, but almost never used it. We parked our cars in the yard next to the house. It was mid-April, and we had already been living on the beach for a month when I made my decision. I got a few recommendations, made a few calls, and set up 3 appointments. At 10 a.m., I poked my head into the back bedroom that Trish used as her office. "Could you do me a favor, honey?" Trish looked up at me and said, "Sure." "You can hear extraneous conversations for the next hour. I'm preparing a surprise, and I'm asking you to stay in my office for that time." Okay, I'm not going out." I had to make the same request to my wife 2 more times throughout the day, and each time Trish agreed. By evening, I had 3 bids from contractors to convert our empty garage into an art studio for Trish and a separate home gym. The storage room above the garage was to become a bunk room for our future grandchildren. When the builders I hired showed up the following Monday, Trish was at a complete loss. "You have to explain to me what's going on. For the last 12 years, we've spent all summer here. Summer is the only time you can focus on art. I'm going to build you an art studio in one half of the garage and a home gym in the other. The second floor will become a bunk room for our grandchildren's wild tribe. Once the renovations are complete, we can move all your art supplies and some of our exercise equipment from the house here." I smiled. This time, Trish couldn't find the words. It wasn't until lunchtime that I found out how excited Trish was. I was making us a salad when my wife walked into the kitchen. She walked over to me, pressed her hot body against mine, and kissed me hard. We kissed non-stop for over a minute. That was a record for the last few years. When Trish heard me coming home Friday around noon, she came down the stairs. "You were gone for a couple hours. Where have you been?" She leaned over to me and kissed me, asking her question. "I took your list of things you need from home and went to get them, and some other things." Trish realized from my voice that I was hiding something. "Some other things?" she clarified, raising an eyebrow. I showed her the little black dress I loved and a pair of black high-heeled shoes that made her legs and ass look even more spectacular. "We're going on a date tonight. Be ready by 6:30. "Chris! Everything's closed. What kind of date are you talking about?" I leaned over, kissed her on the lips, and whispered in her ear, 18:30. When Trish came down the stairs only a few minutes late, I was already dressed in a navy blue pinstripe suit, white shirt, and red tie. Upon seeing my wife, I involuntarily said, "Wow!" and whistled. A big smile spread across Trish's face. "You look pretty good yourself." Kissing me, she stepped back and tugged at my jacket. "How many pounds have you lost weight?" she asked. I shrugged, and before taking her hand and leading her to our car, I answered, "I honestly don't know." Stopping outside our favorite Italian restaurant, I picked up my pre-ordered all of our favorite appetizers, salads, first courses, and desserts. I then drove to White's Marina. My neighbor Joe had an 8-foot sailboat moored there. Having been on it earlier in the afternoon, I set up a small dining table in the cockpit at the stern of the boat. I brought a couple candles, cloth napkins, and silverware with me. Since it was still April, I brought Trish a warm blanket so she could wrap herself in it while we ate. The wine I opened and served with dinner was the first alcohol we'd had since we'd come to live on the coast. All day I wondered if Trish would appreciate my efforts. Her smile and flirty conversation left no doubt that she was happy. And after dinner, she took my hand, led me over to one of the built-on-board seats, and we both made love. On Monday lunchtime, Trish went to the store. I was sitting on the patio when she returned. Soon, when I heard the sliding door open, I looked up and saw Trish standing completely naked inside the house right in the middle of the room. "I want to have sex right now! Now!" she demanded. I uncomplainingly followed her taut body as she led me upstairs. When I entered our bedroom, Trish was already in bed. "Don't say a word! I just want you to make love to me right now." It only took me a moment to drop my pants and join my wife. When we were lying in each other's arms a few minutes later, breathing heavily, I wanted to know, "What was that?" Trish giggled like the schoolgirl I remembered and asked, "Do you promise not to get mad?" "That sounds ominous. Maybe you shouldn't tell me." She giggled loudly again and told me. "I was at the store and was trying to get an 18-pound bag of dog food into my car. A young guy came up to me and offered to help. Like me, he was wearing a protective mask. When he finished, he looked me in the eye, then peered into my cleavage and said, 'You have beautiful eyes.' I couldn't believe it. This boy was trying to pick me up. He said, 'If you want, I'd be happy to walk you home and help you get all your shopping in.' Thank God I was wearing a mask because my face must have turned purple. I thanked him and blew him off. I think my husband can get the dog food inside on his own." As I walked away, I looked back at the guy over my shoulder and saw that his eyes were fixed on my ass. I got so hot at the thought of a young guy trying to seduce me that I rushed home, eager to have sex with you. The next night at dinner, Trish said, "I feel kind of uncomfortable." "What's wrong?" I asked. "There has been so much death, destruction, and suffering since the pandemic broke out. It's all happening all around us. You and I have known people who have died from COVID. But you and I seem to be doing much better now than we have in a long time." I smiled, reached across the table, and drew Trish's hand to my lips. Kissing her, I agreed. In addition to our morning and evening walks with Gordon, as well as yoga, Trish and I added a 45-minute barbell and dumbbell workout at noon. After the renovations to our garage were completed, I brought the weight sets to the beach that my sons used while they lived with us. Trish and I had no intention of becoming bodybuilders. We just wanted to stay strong and healthy. One day when we finished our workout, Trish asked, "Can we talk?" We were sitting on the benches facing each other. I looked at my wife and replied, "Sure. I'm thinking about retiring after this school year ends." When I didn't say anything, Trish continued, "I know I need one more year to maximize my retirement, but I've lost the satisfaction of teaching. I'm bored with it. I'm angry that I can't compete with young, idealistic teachers. What do you think?" I smiled and said, "Looks like I need to plan your retirement party." What was my surprise when Trish stubbornly said, "No, you can't just say, retire. I want to talk about it." "Okay," I nodded. "Let's talk about it." "What do you really think about it?" What am I going to do without a job? I was about to flippantly reply, whatever you want, but held back at the last moment. After a few seconds of thought, I told Trish, I'll have to resume my business trips when the pandemic is over, and I wish you could accompany me on them. Maybe not every trip, but once or twice a month would be ideal. While I'm busy with work during the day, you could explore new cities. We could have dinner together at night. Plus, you'll be a grandmother in 6 weeks. You could look after the baby at least 1 day a week. After some more thought, I continued. In recent years, you've had to put your passion for art on hold and work as a high school math teacher instead. Go back to your dream. Become the artist we all know you want to be. Before Trish could say anything, I continued. You are one of the most talented people I know. You can do anything. But can we afford it, Chris? Of course we can. We can easily afford it. Please convince me. I grinned to myself. Since the beginning of our marriage, Trish had placed all of the family finances completely in my hands. Every time a change needed to be made that required Trish's approval, I simply laid the prepared documents in front of her and she just always signed them, never once asking a single question. I began to explain to her, I still enjoy working, and I don't plan to retire. I'm thinking of working for at least 6 more years, until I'm 65. When I retire, taking into account my pension, retirement account income, and Social Security payments, I'll have about 75% of my current income. Adding your teacher's pension, your individual retirement account, we'll have about 70% of what the two of us earn today. Chris, what about that pile of money I inherited from Mom and Dad? I smiled at Trish and answered, that pile of money has been sitting in various investment accounts earning interest for the last 22 years. It is a much larger pile of money today. If we continue to live a sensible lifestyle, we can spoil our grandchildren and take at least 1 fabulous vacation a year. And when we are gone, that pile of money will pass to our children, and they can invest it in their retirement. When I finished, Trish had tears running down her cheeks. 2 days later, we were out for an evening walk with Gordon. We were on our way home when I asked Trish, I'd like to talk to you about something. I'm listening. I'd like to sell our house in West Hartford and move here permanently. I noticed that Trish held back her first thought just as I bit my tongue and didn't blurt out what was on my tongue when Trish asked about her retirement. Tell me, what are you thinking about, honey? I've been thinking about moving here too, but I don't know. We'd be so far away from the kids, especially now that Lori and Gretchen are pregnant. I said, it's a 20 and 45-minute drive from West Hartford to each of their homes. If we move here, we'll be closer to Gretchen. Our kids will be within an hour's drive of us. We walked in silence for a few minutes, then Trish asked, You have something else, don't you? I admitted, 2 more things. One of them is easy to talk about. The other is a little more difficult. When Trish nodded, I continued. You and I are living alone right now, and we don't need a 480-square-foot house for 2 people. Why do we need 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and 2 toilets on top of that? Why do we need a housekeeper and constant lawn care? Why do we need a pool that we hardly ever use because we move here in the summer? I agree. Tell me about the rest of it. I don't like what our life has become over the past few years. We love each other, but we've started to forget that. We started fighting a lot after the kids left us. We practically fight all the time. We started drinking too much and eating badly. Each of us was preoccupied with our careers, and we were lazy, terribly lazy to socialize. We developed too many bad habits. I thought for a few moments, then continued. The other day you were talking about all the death and suffering going on in the world and how lucky we are to be doing well. It's not just luck. We've both worked hard. We train together every day. We've gone from 4 or 5 glasses of wine a night to 4 or 5 a week. You've gone back to your paintings and you're becoming a real artist, and I'm catching fish and cooking them like a 5-star chef. Trish realized there was more to it than that. After a moment, she said, Tell me about the rest of it. The other day I needed to ask you something and I went to your studio. As I was walking up to it, I suddenly heard you singing. Trish, I haven't heard you sing like that in 10 years. You looked so happy. I sighed and finished. We've worked so hard these past few months and now we're both happy. I don't want to lose that. Trish was crying quietly when she asked me, "Can we not say anything to the kids yet until I think about our move?" June 29th fell on a Monday, and it was the scheduled delivery date for our granddaughter. Our daughter-in-law was scheduled to go into surgical labor at 9:30 a.m. Needless to say, Trish and I were unable to do any work that morning. At 10:47, we received a text from our son that said, "Congratulations, grandparents! Your granddaughter, Kaylee Patricia, was born at 9:48 a.m. Mom, daughter, and I are all okay. We love you." At any other time, Trish and I would have been in the car by now, rushing to Lori's bedside. But these were not normal times. Lori and Kaylee were in isolation. Our son Mike was allowed to stay for 3 hours and then kicked out of the hospital. As I was thinking about our situation, I heard Trish walk up to my office door. When I turned to her, she said, "My first thought was to ask, have you ever made love to Grandma before?" But decided that was too indecent. Can we go to bed and at least cuddle? We had been in bed for a while when Trish felt my body. Jesus, Chris, losing 18 pounds, eating healthy, and cutting back on alcohol is a surefire substitute for Viagra. We laughed together at my confession. I've had a boner for a long time, and I'm sure I won't disappoint you. It seems that exercise and proper nutrition are the source of youth. Answer me one question. Instead of having sex with your grandmother, can you make love to her? A few minutes later, as we lay cuddled together, Trish giggled and said, "That was great. The perfect amount of cuddling, lovemaking, and sex. We put our house in West Hartford on the market in mid-June. It sold without a bid, and the contract was signed just before the 4th of July. Rather than put Trish at risk of exposure to the virus, I had her sign a power of attorney. This gave me the authority to sign documents on her behalf. On the day of the signing, Trish saw me off, kissed me goodbye, and asked me to come home soon. Later that evening, after we had washed the dishes after dinner, I took Trish's hand and walked out onto the terrace with her. We sat in our outdoor chairs and looked out over the water. "I wanted to surprise you with good news," I said to Trish. "And now I wish I had told you about the surprise. We should have talked about it sooner." I could see the wheels turning in Trish's pretty head. "Let me guess." She thought for a moment, and then she gave it away. "Did you use my power of attorney and sign some papers I don't know about?" I was stunned and asked, "How could you know that?" My wife laughed and leaned over to kiss me on the lips. "Look, Buster, I can read you like a book." Seeing that I continued to stare at her in silence, Trish continued, "It was just a feeling, but you were acting a little lightheaded. I saw you breathe a sigh of relief when you got your hands on the document I signed. I had a feeling you were going to use it for something more than closing the sale of the house." I think my face turned red when I realized how well my wife knew me. "I spent some of the money from the sale of the house." Continuing to laugh, Trish encouraged me. "Go ahead and tell me." "First, I paid off the balance of the mortgage on the house. It was a small amount. Then I closed the loan I took out to fix the garage." "You did the right thing, but I'm guessing that's not all. Keep going." "You remember Bill Malloy?" Sure. He and his wife moved to Florida a few years ago." I nodded and continued. "He's now selling real estate in the Tampa area." Trish turned completely around in her chair and looked me in the eye. "And what did you do?" she asked. "I bought a small condo in Clearwater Beach. It's furnished with everything I need and ready to move in. I figured the blue waters and 25-degree temperatures of the Gulf Coast would be a good option for us in January, February, and March." When the look on Trish's face didn't change, I said, "And I bought you a present, just in case you're a little mad at me." I ran my hand under my chair and pulled out 2 gift-wrapped jewelry boxes. "Are you going to pay me off with diamonds?" Trish asked. "Well, they're not exactly diamonds," I admitted. Trish opened the first box and was confused. Without saying a word, she opened the second box and was even more surprised. My wife pulled out two tiny pieces of fabric that had been stuffed each into their own box and shook them to straighten them out. I laughed, watching her lips move but not making a sound. "It's a bikini for the beaches of Florida." "A bikini?" Trish asked in amazement. "It looks like 3 cotton balls connected by fishing line." She laughed and wondered, "Where am I ever going to wear this?" I lifted Trish to her feet, kissed her, and asked, "How about wearing this tonight?" "For me?" We hugged and walked into the house. Our days. My middle son, Stephen, walked away from our family setting up on the beach and joined me on the patio. "Can I get you a beer, Dad?" he asked. When I nodded in agreement, he reached into the refrigerator and pulled out 2 cans of cold beer. Opening them both, he handed me one. Then he looked back at our family sitting on the blankets and said, "You and Mom are looking pretty good. Congratulations." "Thank you. We tried." It took him a few moments before he continued. "Hey, Dad!" When I looked at him, Steve continued, "You look 10 years younger." "If you want to know the truth, I feel 20 years younger." "You've even got a different demeanor, Dad." "Maybe," I said to Steve. Last week, I learned that 2 coworkers and an old college friend had lost their parents to COVID. That's 7 more people in the last few weeks. I'm upset about the effects the virus has caused, and at the same time, I have never been happier. I thank God for me, for your mom, for our whole family. We are happy people. Steve reached out and hugged me. It took 5 seconds for the chorus of social distance, "You're spreading COVID," and "no hugs" to erupt from the beach at us. I winked at Stephen. We both laughed and headed to the beach to join our family. The end! Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.